world surrounded by franchises, reboots, and shared universes. An elite team of podcasters will risk body and soul to investigate the depths of intellectual properties, one multiverse, subgenre, and trend at a time. Who are we? We're the IP Squad. Welcome back to the IP Squad, our continuing investigation into film adaptations of pulp and comic strip heroes. I'm John Campbell. With me, my two partners for this, as they're affectionately known now in our descriptions, the Jones Boys.
Howdy.
Brendan Jones.
Hey, I'd like to
Robin
welcome
Jones.
our longtime viewers. You know, once again, we're spinning off this episode into one of my favorite podcasts that I host. Of course, I'm talking about John Phillip Souza, the musical. We'll be
The musical.
singing our entire analysis of this movie to John Phillip Souza classics.
Robin, I thought we agreed.
Brennan, you want to take it away?
I thought we agreed we'd call it Sousa, Yusa. And,
Sousa.
yeah.
Souza, Yusa, and we spell Yusa with a capital USA because, you know, he's American.
Yeah.
Well, and as this movie paints that USA in the old red, white, and blue right there.
Oh, there you
Christ
go.
Ooh, boy.
Bleeding. Those colors bleed red, white, and blue, buddy.
That's right, folks. It's 1975. We've entered the 70s with Doc Savage, the Man of Bronze.
Yeah.
Indeed.
Oh, the first of all the classic Doc Savage movies they made, obviously.
Listen, you lousy hippies. Listen, you hippies. Here's a real man. Here's a real man.
He is.
He's a real man of bronze.
Now, I'll do a little history, John, if I may.
Well, that is
Wait,
as you
John,
always do.
I want to just to set up this episode correctly.
Snap.
You know, on the IP Squad, Brendan is known as sort of the researcher, the Johnny, if you will. Uses
I am
big
the
words.
Johnny.
Yeah.
He
Super
researches quite a
amalgamated.
bit.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And then we were following a 70s cop theme, I would, of course, be the Serpico.
Oh, yes.
I'm a master of disguise. I don't play by the rules.
Yeah.
I'm constantly fighting with the corrupt officials.
Robin,
within my
how
own
did I end
squad.
up as one of the Fabulous Five, which makes sense, and then you veer into 70s cop territory?
Serpico. Yeah.
Because it's a film made in the 70s. As an answer, it was supposed to be a family film to combat all of this.
Oh.
You know, because there were very little films made for families at that point.
Even reading through
re-releases.
Reading through the history on Wikipedia, there's a lot of even like this is going like we're even more family friendly than Bond. All right, we don't have any of the dirty stuff that's in a Bond picture.
Right. This ain't. It's not filthy like Bond.
Yeah. Anyway, Brendan, yes, the history
it will have disturbing fetish imagery.
I was more
it's
offended.
It's made like Dr. Dolittle is what it is.
Oh God. Okay.
But yes, Brendan, let's talk about Doc Savage, the character.
Doc Savage.
Yeah.
Okay. So.
Okay, man.
All right,
tell your nonsense, man.
Yeah, Serpico started as a pulp in 1949. Sort of at the end of the pulp period.
I am kind of obsessed.
Man.
I think we've mentioned it before on Meet the Monsters because people were involved in it, the movies we did. I'm obsessed with the fact that there was a Serpico TV show in the 70s because
David Burney.
What I love about it, though, I just love
Burney.
it's like, that was a real guy. And that movie was what really happened to him. And now we're going to make up a bunch of stories about what this real guy also might have done in a fantasy.
John,
so crazy.
John, really briefly.
Yeah.
It was because they had already done a Toma and then a Beretta, and they thought, well, let's go back to where this is all coming from.
Sure.
Well, I will say...
But the thing is, David Burney is no Robert Blake. He's no...
He didn't shoot a single wife.
He didn't shoot
He's
any of his
Tony
wives.
Musante.
He
I'll tell you
didn't
that
kill
much.
any of his wives. That's
Yeah,
true. All right,
that's-
moving back.
Brendan,
Although,
All
there
right.
it is.
let's go all the way back to the
All the
birth
way
of
back.
Doc
So
Savage.
Killed their soul, maybe.
American pulps didn't have too many heroes that were serialized or had their pulps named after them, but you did have back in the day Nick Carter, who was kind of one of the long running, and he was a Sherlock Holmes knockoff.
Killmonger.
Well, he eventually became like a badass men's adventure guy. Killmaster, whatever.
Yeah.
But he started out as a Sherlock Holmes riff. But anyway, so he was very popular. But in the 30s, this is interesting to me on a parallel as far as who came first. The Shadow came first because we'll get into that when we do the Shadow, his backstory. But essentially, he was a huge hit. And not only was the pulp named after him, it was strictly his adventures. And that was a big thing. Novella length every month, and usually written by the same guy, which is nuts. And the same happened. Okay, so Shadow's a big hit. Street and Smith go, we want a follow-up. And essentially, two of the editors just brainstormed this concept of Doc Savage. Right. Then they handed it off to Lester Dent. And Lester Dent, the writer, is the guy who brings us all the good stuff and wrote the lion's share of the Doc Savage pulps. And yet you read quotes from him, he's like going, it was my job. And you're like, wow. He's like, I was no literary talent. He goes, I'm no great author, and I beg to differ. But he did write to a formula like they all did, which is the only way you could put out, that kind of massive amount of work. So anyway, Doc Savage as a pulp character was a huge hit. The reason I say it's a parallel, it always reminds me of the Superman-Batman thing. When comics come along, Superman, who is a little bit of a sci-fi riff on Doc Savage, to some degree.
Well, it's interesting because they're inversed, right? In the pulps, the dark one comes first, and then
yes, Superman came first, and then they said to a no-talent hack, who is not Lester Dent, by the way, not a no-talent hack.
No, Lester Dent's great.
But basically, like, hey, come up with something that, and they're like, oh, well, you didn't hit the dark one yet, so we got Batman. But anyway, so Doc Savage, huge, hugely influential. And his, you can trace all the things that he is, because he's also Sherlock Holmes. He's also Tarzan. He's all these things meshed together.
He might be the ultimate amalgam hero character, right?
He really is. And
he is super amalgamated.
He is super amalgamated.
It's true.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And so he's awesome and does well, and never successfully adapted anywhere else. There was a short run radio show during the pulp run. And that was it. Lester Dent actually had the media rights to that character, which is pretty impressive while he was still alive.
Wow.
Yeah.
So any TV show or any movie had to be approved by him and all that, but none happened. And then he passed away. The rights passed to his wife, and she's the one who greenlit this movie, or at least said, okay, Mr. Powell, let's see what you got. And then we get...
Well, I want to briefly touch on the who almost made the
Chuck Connors. You want to bring up?
I always want to bring up Chuck Connors.
You always want to bring up.
And stay tuned for my Rifleman rewatch podcast that I'll be doing.
Rifling through the Rifleman.
Rifling through the Rifleman. That's actually so good a title, I might have to do it now.
We're the Riflers.
That's much like someday we're gonna do Braving Brave Star, Brendan.
Oh yes, we are.
We're gonna have to do it. But no, the thing. Not only do I want to bring up Chuck Connors, I want to bring up the fact that the people who tried to do that were Mark Goodson and Bill Todman. Who one of my great loves, and I never get to talk about on any of these things, is old game shows. I love vintage game shows.
Sure.
And so they were the kings of that. Everything was a Goodson Todman production,
Yeah.
But it's so bizarre that they were going to go, all right, we're going to get Doc Savage. And their plan was to cast Chuck Connors, yes.
And it almost happened, and that was like
and that was 66, exactly. They specifically got it because they said we could make our own Bond.
The reason it all started to peak around that time, because literally the pulps died out in the 50s, including Doc Savage and so forth. And then there was this fallow period, and then apparently they got rediscovered because Bantam, the paperback publishers, they decided, hey, that stuff's cheap.
Yeah.
And they get those covers painted by James Bama. Come on.
And the covers promise
covers.
the thing about those covers, they always promise stories that the books just couldn't deliver. I mean, you know what I mean?
Actually, I don't agree there.
Some of them did. Some of them did, but
Brendan has yet to mention how dark Doc Savage got in the later books, where it would be like just maybe him and Monk or somebody, and it would be touch and go.
Well, it also became a detective thing for a while, where most of the super science went away, and then right at the end, it came back to super science. And have you ever read at the is the
volcano or
not at the Earth's core?
No, because Tarzan went to the Earth's core. Oh wow!
Yeah, it goes to hell, right?
I haven't read that one.
And that is the last Doc Savage adventure. You're like, wow. But anyway, so and it's also the first one that Doc is not entirely convinced there's a scientific answer. He's kind of like, oh, that may have been the supernatural.
So,
which is a crazy way to go out with Doc. Anyway,
on that though, they were gonna make it with Chuck Connors. And the craziest thing is there is a tie-in with Gold Key Comics that is a remnant of the only existing remnant of what that movie would have been. But instead they made you guys remember the movie Ride Beyond Vengeance with Chuck Connors?
Not until I read that thing.
Yeah, I don't know this movie either. That basically they took everything they had going on that and just went, we're gonna make this Western with Chuck Connors instead, and it's called Ride Beyond Vengeance. Never seen it. Sounds pretty nuts.
I don't think it's based on the Doc Savage.
No. They just took all the resources and people they had in place and spun it over to here.
Right.
Yeah, it's just interesting.
So this is the only, what we're about to talk about, it's the only Doc Savage adaptation that successfully made it, and
so far.
Yes, well, I mean, we'll see. But as you bring up George Powell, right on the point you were bringing up, Brendan, about the reprintings of these by Bantam and stuff. Basically, that's why this movie exists. Is George Powell, according to this, was just like, I was walking through these bookstores and I saw all these Doc Savage novels, and I said, "Hey, is this a thing?" Like, basically, there's a lot of these. Right. How do I get the rights to this? This could be big.
The pulp guys had this resurgence because of these reprints, and that goes for the Shadow as well, and the Avenger and so forth. And so the cool 60s kids were like, oh dude, these are my dad read these, and then they're reading them and they're enjoying them because they are fun toss off adventure stuff.
Yes.
But even the stupidest Doc Savage novel takes itself more seriously and has more drama to it than this thing that happened.
It's so interesting reading the development of the movie, and it clearly just kept getting compromised, right? Because this was not like day one, this was their take. I mean, you have all these quotes from George Powell going, we're going to do it right, we're going to do it with quality, this is going to be well made. And then, the more people got involved, the more it seemed to just descend into what this is.
Actually, I honestly think that George Powell's take, and in this he is just producing. Mm-hmm. The great George Powell who gave us War of the Worlds, of course, one of my all-time favorites.
Oh, great, yeah.
Love that thing. I mean, he did a lot of great stuff. Time Machine.
Yeah.
But the thing is, I think this is the version he had in mind. He thought, probably as a producer, he goes, this stuff is popular with the kids, as is Batman. This is how people like their heroes now, is the adults like the wink of the campiness, and the kids just accept it straight ahead. So he wanted to use all the materials. I will say, there's a lot of very faithful stuff in this movie where all these.
I kept stopping it and telling my wife, "Okay, this is a thing that actually happens in the book."
That's what's weird about the movie,
But that's the thing is that, but I think that he just said this is how you do it now. So I don't think it got compromised. I think
I mean, at least based on now, once again, when that may be my misreading of when he says things like they're going to be well made, they're going to be
he's like, oh, we're being totally faithful, and in a way they were.
Well, this movie is really interesting because, as you bring that up, it is incredibly faithful. It's a real lesson in tone, though, right? Like, it is like, all the pieces are there, and they're even
Yeah.
adapting the first novel, kind of,
Yes.
But but it's
as a
the
starting
tone.
point of his adventures, tone is it's a choice they have made.
Yeah.
And what's amazing when I watch this, and when I said that I'd made a major breakthrough with this movie,
Oh, you did say that before we before we started
I will
recording.
never watch it.
Here's his hot take.
I will never watch this again.
No, because
Here's the thing. I've watched it in my life maybe 7 times.
you own
I
a
have
copy
the
of it.
Blu-ray.
Yeah.
And the only reason I've never thought it was good. Don't take that. But I've
Right.
always just. It's like whatever I can get out of it, I'll take it because that's the only Doc Savage I've got, and I just can't anymore. There is nothing. You can't celebrate anything in this movie. This is a movie where every choice, nothing lands.
Yeah.
I've never seen a movie where nothing lands. The concept, the dialogue, the set design, the casting, the cinematography, the jokes, the humor. None of it lands.
No.
The action doesn't land.
I'm so glad you said that, because that's
Oh, this
exactly what
movie's
I thought
crap.
watching it last night, where I said, I don't know that anything worked for me in this. And I think you're right on the money there, Brendan, at least
It hurts.
with my opinion on it too, which is bringing up the Batman. And we were talking about a little bit of this before Robin joined us and we started recording. But the Batman 66 comparison, it really made me once again reappreciate how much I love the Batman 66 show, because it's so there's a craft to it. It's so crafted. Everybody's on the same page.
Yeah.
It's also a huge problem here is Ron Ely, because he's not Adam West. Adam West he is so much of the reason that works is he is Batman. He is comic book Batman, and this is life or death. Ron Ely is being sincere in this, but there's no level to it, right? Because he's not really an actor.
I actually think he's probably the best thing in it.
I
That
just
is
found
very
him
weak. No,
Yeah,
that's very
'cause he's
weak,
so
because
boring.
He
Yeah.
is sincere.
Yeah.
And he is not winking overly much. All the things about little, animated sparkles in his teeth and his eyes or whatever, a la Wonder Woman opening, that okay, fine. That's not his fault. Them adding in
No, he's just
people
dull
cheering when he
though.
does the oath. That's
That's the thing that gets me.
Yeah.
He's just so dull though is the problem.
he is.
And I mean, they've got this is kind of a correlation to Danger Diabolique, but I immediately noticed that because I have not seen this in probably 20 or 30 years.
Yeah.
That Paul Frees does the voiceover,
Oh Jesus.
and Paul Frees also was the voice of Adolfo Celli last week.
Yeah.
But Frees has been instructed to read it like he's doing a Jay
William
Ward
Dozer.
cartoon, or
Very much so.
a Hardware Wars kind of take on it.
This is
Paul
Doc
Frees-
Savage.
Yeah, he's doing exactly
I know.
that, and that is literally like the first thing. You're seeing the American flag in an Arctic wasteland, and you hear his voice, and the problem is that voice immediately tells you, don't take this seriously.
At all.
I love Paul Frees, but he is a comedic, cartoony voice, and on purpose.
And he's
This is
great at
saying
it.
to you-
And he's directed that way. I think he's also been used for other things. But
no, it's
you're
true.
right, Brendan. To your point, he's been told this is zany.
Yeah.
This is like a Jay Ward cartoon.
Yes.
Yeah.
Read it like that.
They took
know?
Doc Savage and they decided to kidify him to where you can take him as seriously as Dudley Do-Right, and that is that's a
Well, it's
horrible take.
It's a thing that was very. Once again, it's so interesting that this comes out, a few years before Superman the movie, where I think that we talked about this a little bit before. That's really a turning point where somebody went like, "Oh shit, you can do this for real, in a serious way." And it is so interesting because
you still have Otis and Mrs. Tessmacher, but anyway,
they are comic relief within the world.
but
They
within
are
the
silly
world-
to the other characters.
Yes,
even.
yes,
Right, and this is, of course, Superman could only get made because of Star Wars. Really, it could only get greenlit because that established that you can do this kind of popcorn genre
Star Wars is
as,
another example too.
something
The earnestness.
sophisticated.
Yeah, and the
Yeah.
earnestness of it, right? Where it's like it's not. This is the tone of this movie is something that Brendan, you and I, and I'm sure you do as well, Rob. But Brendan, you and I have talked about this a lot. We hate when people are ashamed of source material. It is the worst feeling when you can feel that people go like, "Yeah, but this is fucking dumb, right? Like this is also stupid."
The problem is that it
Why am I watching then, right? Like
exactly. If your whole goal was, and the goal here was, let's have a Bond-like series that younger people can enjoy instead of it being like, the Bond stuff. And
it's not a bad take.
Not a bad idea, but the thing is, if you're gonna do an IP, hey, it's the IP squad. If you're gonna do an IP, if you do not trust the material, if you know better than the material, which has already been successful in a different genre or a different field, if you don't trust it, step away. If you don't like it, or it's like, don't do it. Because there are people that wanted, probably even at that time, to do a straight ahead Doc Savage thing, which, if they had done almost the exact same script, only get rid of the terrible comedy.
God, the jokes just.
But anyway, if you took that exact same script and chucked that tone, and also spent a little money to, I will
also say directing is a problem on this thing, right? Like it's just it doesn't look terrible, but it doesn't look great either.
It looks terrible.
Well,
there are skits on the Sonny and Cher show
that
look better than this.
And this
has all the dramatic tension and mood of Harlem Globetrotters on Gilligan's Island.
They've
all right. But let me just get outside of this for a second.
Yeah, you get outside.
What? Let me just
take a walk.
As the Serpico.
As the Serpico. He's the renegade.
I'm going to break the rules.
He is the renegade.
What do you guys think of Buckaroo Banzai?
Well, what did we say about it the other day, John?
Yeah, we were just talking. It's the best Doc Savage movie anyone's made.
Yeah.
There you go.
It is absolutely the best Doc Savage movie.
And it's also hilariously funny.
It's funny, but it's within the world of the thing.
And it's another thing. I mean, of course, everybody, but similar to Adam West, because Weller gets it, like really gets what is needed. And it is it really does make you appreciate how good how much skill it takes to do that kind of acting, right? Like,
absolutely.
Like it's a tightrope act.
Similar to a Sherlock Holmes type thing.
Weller can look at a guy and say, "Because you're perfect, Tommy."
Yeah.
And the way he says it, it's sincere, but he's also kind of saying Buckaroo knows he's saying a funny thing.
Seeing it as a kid and still watching it as an adult, I believe that man is a neuroscientist, rock star, physicist. You buy it the second he walks on screen. This is the coolest guy you've ever seen.
Brendan's nephew's one of his top 5 favorite movies. I think only Scott Pilgrim beats it.
Both great choices.
Yeah. And I gotta say, I mean, after the movie's over, Stacy goes, "So this was like what Buckaroo Banzai?" I go, "No, this is what Buckaroo Banzai did well."
Yeah. It really is, and that's the thing is, and
Buckaroo Banzai is fan fiction. Earl MacRausch is doing Doc Savage fan fiction, but also he essentially, I think did a lot of drugs as well and so forth.
What? I don't see any evidence of that. No.
So it's very much like if Terry Southern adapted Doc Savage, and it works.
Yeah, it really works.
He's not making fun of anything in the concept.
No.
He is creating humor and weirdness, surreality within that world, but the world is, everyone in that world is aware of, and no one is winking. They know Buckaroo Banzai. They know all the stuff he does. Everyone he meets has either read his comics, played the video game, or they are members of the Blue Blaze Irregulars. And I'm just like, I could all day long with Buckaroo Banzai. Because it is Doc Savage through a filter.
It's 80s Doc Savage. It's totally 80s
Doc Savage. This is
Doc
literally
Savage.
Doc Savage messed up.
It
They
really
just
is. It's
didn't get it.
It's
They don't
almost
get it.
this movie almost offends me. Yeah, on that
Yes,
level. Like
that's
it's
what I'm saying. I'm very angry and will never watch.
Because it's not just a bad take. It does seem to be a takedown. Whether that was, I don't think that was like the goal going in. But it feels that way. And the idea that they were, I mean, literally, I'm sure you read the quotes from Power. Where he goes, "If I'm lucky, I'll do all 181 of these things."
Oh,
he really saw dollars. He thought this was going to be Bond. Every year there'd be another Doc Savage movie.
Right.
Boy, was he wrong.
It must have driven some of these guys crazy when, out of nowhere, the guy who made American Graffiti cracked the code. You know that he figured it
actually, yes, that's true. Especially, I'm sorry, yes, with genre stuff. I was about to say, well, his buddy cracks a different code, because I love the fact that Doc Savage came out like right before Jaws, and Jaws is like, I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
But yes, in terms of like earnest, old school, and then of course, then those two guys together will do Indiana Jones, obviously, which is really continuing this thing of like, no, we love this stuff, and we're going to. They don't think to do the thing we do praise so much on all the stuff we talk about, Brendan, which is, they don't think, can we elevate this? Okay, yes, this could read silly, but is there a way to treat this seriously, to write this intelligently and cast it with good actors and make a thing that is larger than life feel, visceral or something, or feel like it could connect to people?
Lucas takes Tatooine and makes it like a David Lean movie.
Well, and
he takes ships shooting lasers at each other in space and makes them like World War II dogfights.
And actually, that leads us.
Knows, from film history, from film class, what can be done in things that people didn't think. And were something you could do.
A huge part of that is, and this is where this movie also blows it, is the John Williams score, of course, right? And so the John Phillip Souza music in this further adds to, that's just a bunch of who gives a shit, right?
It literally
with zany lyrics, with it's all of it is kind of nonsense.
It's a goof,
in a way that Lucas and Spielberg would never have entertained. They're not going to have a D as in Indiana Jones.
Because
there's nobody going to sing that.
Mock
well,
Luke,
I do, but that's just me.
Mock
I did
Lucas
it on the way to Dial of Destiny.
Here's the thing with Lucas that I will say, and always mock him all you want for his, but always earnest.
And you can.
Oh, you obviously can, but always earnest. Always. I mean, if anything, maybe he takes it too seriously by the time you get to the prequels. But that's I do respect that it was never a lark. He always took Star Wars as this is an epic saga, and you need to feel this at every moment.
Yeah, it's very true. The approach to this material fails out the gate, and every step of the way, when it does look like a TV show, it looks
on that point,
it's shot like a TV show.
What's interesting though,
and I will say to your casting disparagement, Brendan, one thing I love in this movie, not necessarily Ron Ely, although that's probably the best you could do for this.
They wanted Steve Reeves, though. We should say that was they really went after Steve Reeves for this.
Yeah.
They really went after.
That wouldn't have been.
I feel like that would have been exactly the same.
Right. So you look at something like this, and the first thing that hit me, of course, as I'm watching it, when the Fabulous Five get together, was because Stacey's going, I recognize all of these guys. I go,
oh yeah.
Yeah. What's funny though is that the Fabulous Five is cast with people who usually played bad guys.
That is interesting. Yeah.
Most of these guys played really good bad guys in either TV or movies. Most notably Paul Gleason, but even the guy who played Rennie was
Bill Lucking,
the bad guy in a gajillion things, including the Limey.
Yeah,
it was just fascinating to me. And the guy who plays Ham is a guy who played upper class weasels, and he was kind of a second tier William Daniels, And,
100%. Yeah.
you know, it all of these guys were cast against type, and I think for the most part, if it had been written better, they would have killed it.
Well, they're
Well,
all
no,
good
that-
actors.
Great.
They're all
That's
good
the thing
actors.
Is that they're all good actors, and with the exception maybe of Monk, but I will say Monk would be hard to cast anyway. Someone that fits the thing.
Yeah.
But when I'm looking at them, they are the Fabulous Five. But again, you've got good actors and what they're given and how they're asked to pitch their performances. Because all these people, you've seen them do stuff and you go, oh, they're not that two-dimensional, and they're also not that lame at delivering material. They are purposely cartoonizing their performances, which is a shame. Because again, you've got, I mean, they are fitting the books. You're like, okay. Again, with the exception of Monk.
Yeah.
And so again,
but very surface level, right? That's the thing where it's like
this is just like when we're talking about they work in all the stuff. All the stuff is there. It's just how they're using it.
That's what's
so
so weird about it.
I am upset that his, headquarters is on the 86th floor of the Empire State Building, but they do that awesome thing with him and the Eagle gargoyle extension that is on the Chrysler Building. That's not on the Empire State Building.
Yeah, but I don't know. But it's a comic book New York. I'm okay.
Brandon,
I'm okay with that.
If that's the worst thing that was in this movie,
No, I know.
No.
It's just that every little thing where I'm trying to enjoy it every single time I watch it. And I go,
there's your mistake.
The big thing that stuck out for me like a sore thumb and was totally where it encapsulates everything we're talking about is pardon my language, the fucking branding of Doc Savage on his belt buckle and his bumper sticker. And I just was like, what the fuck were you thinking?
Yeah.
The car is the Doc One, but using the logo that he's like, oh, I put my logo on everything. It's like, no,
he doesn't have that kind of ego on him.
The bronze car is fine because that's from the comic, but don't put
I also love him riding on
the snowmobile.
When he's riding on the side of the car when they're driving through is very classic Doc Savage, him on the side of the car.
No, everybody. When he's riding on the car, that's supposed to happen. That's the thing.
When he's on the sideboard.
That's all.
Look into my marriage because when Stacey and I watch a movie, it's a lot of me pausing, going, "Okay, that thing right there, that right there."
But that's in the Jones blood.
Talking about maybe I'm somehow a distant Jones because I do that too.
No, John, please.
Hey, John.
Yeah.
Hey, John, could you be an even more distant Jones?
John, you might want to get that gene removed.
Yeah, I know. Oh, yeah, I'm working. I'm doing a 23andMe.
Well for you, John.
I'm doing 23andMe to prove I'm not a Jones. I'm like, please don't.
Good. That's
Ooh,
good.
no.
Get that taken care of.
No, but the thing you were
removed.
talking about the direction, this guy's not a hack, though. That's the thing that's crazy about Michael Anderson. Comes from directing a lot of really good stuff, right? I mean, this is a guy who made Operation Crossbow and the Dam Busters and the 1956 Around the World in 80 Days. He gets hired. Basically, they talk about the reason they hired him for this. Oh no, he hadn't done Logan's Run yet. Then why is the guy mentioning Logan's Run in one of the? Anyway, he will do Logan's Run after this, which is a much better movie.
Yeah. Much better movie.
So I think it's interesting.
I think he was instructed to do this.
I
think the editing. Here's another thing. Talking about the fight scenes, the editing where they leap into action.
Yeah.
I get what they're trying to do. They're not succeeding.
No.
It is poorly done.
That's a big problem.
I will say not just the action scenes. This is paced horribly. This
horribly.
is edited horribly.
It's an hour
opening thing and the first thing, which is the assassination attempt, and you're like going, well, thank God I got to see him climb up those stairs. Now he's on a ladder. Now he's
that chase feels like it's half
yeah.
the movie. Them chasing after that assassin.
It's like we talk about with Sin City, where it feels like they see it in a thing, and so they feel like they need to do that, but they're not making the translation into
at least
cinema.
Sin City is pretty to look at, though.
Or anything with a pulse. It is just slowly, it's not exciting.
but Sin City, like you see a panel of a car driving around a mountain road. In the movie Sin City, they let it take as long as it would take to drive around a mountain road or something.
Yeah,
And it's like,
yeah.
you don't. You're a better editor than this. Why are you taking so long with it?
That might Sin City might be the exact opposite of this, where that's a guy so in love with the material, right? So soaked into his blood that he's like, oh, it's
Sin City
gorgeous.
always brings up Watchmen for me, simply because it is an example of someone who is, and I don't think Zack Snyder gets Watchmen, but there's no denying he loves it. He just doesn't get it. He doesn't understand it, but he thinks it's awesome. So again, it's like so beholden, and you're like, wait, buddy, adaptation is what you're up to. Don't just give us the
Watchmen's, and we'll probably do a Watchmen episode at some point. That's a whole other bag of worms, because
that's another podcast.
It didn't matter who did that; they were doomed on that one. I do, in mild defense of Snyder.
Family movies and make money, and they thought this would be a good vehicle for that. And it was just they didn't understand the material.
Well, it's just, but the thing that's crazy about that is, aside from the not doing the material or whatever with this, it's also just like to your point, Brendan, about like the editing and stuff like that. It's just not exciting, even regardless of us being Doc Savage fans going, no, this really isn't Doc Savage. Just what audience member would want to sit through these fights? They're not. That's the thing. It's not only is it not fun. It's just, this movie's not fun. It's the camp, but it's not fun.
Between our hero and the main bad guy, who we'll talk about, Mr. Wexler.
Oh God.
We'll talk.
Oh Jesus.
But when the climactic battle is a guy who is extremely physically fit for his. For the time, and had played Tarzan, and so we're like,
and he was boring in that too, but that's all right.
But here he is, and so possibly he could deliver some fights, and then you've got a character actor guy. This isn't his thing, and so the best thing they can do is turn it into a comedy sequence where they put up the names of each fighting style, which they're also not going to do well at.
And they're made up too.
No, they're sumo.
Sumo is right. Karate is right. And then there's like sick fu or something. It's not.
What is I think it's gung fu, not kung fu. I believe they put up gung fu. Hilarious. I had to pause the movie because I was laughing so hard. But to that point, it's
terrible.
The campiness of it, though, in that sense of, but like they're drawing this comparison, so if people can get on me for going, why do you keep comparing it to 66 Batman? But like the 66 Batman fight scenes are also good. Like, they're campy and they do the bang and pows, but they're well choreographed, they're fast paced, they're interestingly shot.
The fast paced things is the important, because that is a TV show. They don't have the time. But
they also hired like Burt Ward, who actually knew martial arts, and stuff like that too.
So they're doing some quick stuff, which actually this could have used.
There's kineticism is the word. That's what's lacking with it. This movie's not kinetic at all.
No.
So that's why I was saying to you, Brendan, even when I saw this as a kid, because like you guys, I also just sought out anything related to. I'm happy I grew up in the time I did, so I can appreciate now all this superhero stuff that kids are just like. I still grew up in somewhat of the end of the dark ages of but even as a kid, I thought this was boring. Is what I'm saying. Even as a kid, I thought Doc Savage movie's pretty lame.
I kept thinking, who would have directed this better, or who would have been able to take a stronger attack on it?
Yeah.
And the only name that came to mind for me, you remember the guy who directed 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea, Richard Fleischer?
Oh yeah.
He would have done a better job.
Yeah, I could see
overall. that. I think he would have stood up to Pal. I think he would have, had a stronger take on the material, and I think he would have made it move a lot better, because Fleischer was very much a journeyman director. He's known, for directing like these ace, lean and mean noirs, like the original Narrow Margin. Mm-hmm. But then he's also known for directing the Conan sequel, Conan the Destroyer.
Yeah, which we'll be talking about in a few weeks on the show here.
But here's the thing: he's not, known on a level even of a Howard Hawks, but he was somebody that knew how to shoot, knew how to cut, knew how to gear it to the material. He did a movie called The Last Run with George C. Scott.
I'm so glad you meant, because I see that. I love that movie. People need to see that movie. The Last Run is a great movie.
John, it's no Fear is the Key, but it's really good.
it's if you like Fear is the Key,
yeah,
the last both of those. Oh, it's so good. Great George C. Scott performance.
So Brendan, to my point, he would have been able to honor the material better in a cinematic form, and that's my point.
That's fine. I mean, there are a lot of things that in a dream world could be fixed, or
the other guy
Doc Savage could have happened possibly that would have satisfied.
The other guy who maybe could have done it, and he's still on the campier end and did do some shit later, but Richard Lester, the Three Musketeers movies I was thinking about also have a wackiness, but a kineticism.
Slapstick a little bit.
He might have leaned into slapstick, but he at least would have given it some energy. Is kind of what I'm thinking.
Yeah.
Because I do like those Three Musketeers movies he made.
I do too.
No, you're
barking up the same tree.
And someday there will be a Royal Flash, and he did Robin and Marion, which is kind of an oddly
beautiful movie.
That's a weird outlier in his career for sure.
Yeah.
That's
I'm pulling us back.
Back to the movie we actually have, which is
this is what we've got.
Yeah.
I enjoyed it probably more than my brother did, but it's not from the movie being good. It's more from me just looking at actors and just going, "Yeah, that guy's good. He needed to do another hero thing."
I mean, that's the thing is that you have to. I mean, you don't have to. You can watch a movie any way you want to.
The guy who played. I'm thinking of the guy who played Johnny.
Eldon
my
Quick.
Wife and I both just thought was terrific in this.
He was terrific.
And he's great in a bunch of other stuff.
Yeah, he usually played a troubled youth or a skeezy youth in like episodes of Cannon and Barnaby Jones.
Oh, he was another guy in all of those.
Black recently, I look at him and go, I sit there going, he's a very Dennis Christopher. Where there's more to him than this like sort of fey or you're like, oh, there's something there. He could probably rock a bunch of different parts, but
he approached it with intelligence, so you could believe that he would actually say, "I'll be super amalgamated." Which I did a fist pump when he said that.
Of course. Now the thing is that anytime they did their stuff, except for I was like, could Monk put down the goddamn pig? Because the pig is in the books, but even in the books, the pig was not just always under his arm. Monk is one of the he's a fighter. And it said they have him running around with the pig.
It's indicative of the whole approach to the movie, right? Where it's just like, that's the guy with the pig.
Yeah.
End of character.
Okay, he's the Lou Costello.
Yeah.
And he'll be that.
But anyway, so
not the Lou Costello.
No.
He's the Benjamin Grimm.
He's the Ben Grimm. But
not in this movie, he's not.
Now, when this came out, I was 6 years old. Robin, you were 10.
Yeah, I never got to Macomb. Never got to Mississippi. We just heard about it. Back me up.
Then when did we see it?
TV.
Oh, okay. But what I do remember, because
we read about it quite a bit.
Right.
Famous Monsters of Filmland. And,
now the thing is that I had never read a Doc Savage novel at that point until later. I don't know if you had, Robin, at 10. Maybe you had. Okay, you had. Yeah. But what I remember is just what you're talking about. It was promoted in the things that we as nerds liked. And I remember the Marvel magazine.
There were comic books too.
The Marvel black and white magazine that you brought home, the first one, we had it, which has the cover of the movie, which is James Bama, Doc Savage illustration, but he paints Ron Ely.
It's kind of a sweet poster. I do like the poster.
and that was
Which
issue
you
1.
see at the end of the movie too. They like flash it up at the end of the movie as well.
And I remember reading that thing, which I think had art by John Buscema. And it was so comic book adapting the actual novels, so it's not campy or whatever, and I loved it. And then eventually I read the books, so even as a kid coming to the movie, which I guess I didn't see when it first came out, we saw it later on TV, and I was like, oh no, they didn't get it. So even as you say, John, a kid, if a kid is familiar with something and then goes to see, like, I loved Batman 66. That was my first live action Batman. For a lot of people, it was as well. And I grew up in the Silver Age when Batman was still
here's the thing I always say to the Batman 66
Bronze
people.
Age, sorry, Bronze
the Batman when I talk to other comic book fans who go, that show's lame, or it's, so I think that's changed a little bit, but like Batman should be dark. It's like they actually were pretty faithfully adapting what Batman was like at the time. That's I think the other thing about
50s and early 60s.
I think that's the other thing that's different about it is it's not shitting on the material like this is. It is doing it very.
They had him traveling through time or going to a different planet.
Oh, and believe me, well, I know, I'm sure you're familiar with the almost Batman 66 meets Godzilla movie that they tried to make, right?
Nope.
Oh, there's
I'm hearing of it.
There's a podcast I highly recommend. Brendan, I think you might have listened to some of it. Robin, I don't know if you're familiar with this podcast, The Best Movies Never Made, where they read scripts of movies that never got made, and one of them they do read is they did a whole series of almost Batman movies, and one was a script for what would have been a Toho co-production of Bruce Wayne and Dick Grayson go to Japan for business. And what's this, Robin? A giant lizard is attacking the city. You know?
Oh, Jesus. We just hit that point of the podcast.
No, Robin. That's right, Robin.
The Joker has activated the biggest clown of all.
I'm trying. It's but like I who knows, but it is one of those things where you just any nerd's mind is like, what? Not only Batman fighting Godzilla, but specifically Adam West Batman fighting 60s Toho Godzilla. That
he probably could have.
I'm sure I can't remember all the details, but he had gadgetry and stuff.
Comics, those Batman 66 comics where he meets like Wonder Woman 77 or
he Man from Uncle.
Steven Peele.
He met I love all those. Yeah.
So good.
Now
Man from Uncle would have worked. That shit would have worked. Steven Peele would have worked too.
Oh, 100%. Now, being the younger person here, I came to Doc Savage through the DC Comics. The DC Comics 90s relaunch that Denny O'Neil and Adam Kubert did. That was the Doc Savage I first came to.
And that was also, it was adapting, but it was taking it seriously, but it was like, we're kind of bringing him to the present day.
Yeah, it was
still Doc.
Oh, and that's the thing. That was a good...
John, it was inspired by the revival of the Shadow that had been done.
Which I was also a massive fan of, the Shadow Strikes comic that they did. I was... those were... A lot of the pulp characters I came through, too. Because a lot of my appreciation for pulp was, and we'll get to this, a lot of my appreciation for these characters we're talking about is because there was sort of an attempt to revive these characters in the 90s when I was a kid. Yeah. And so we'll talk about all the movies and comics and stuff that were done. But
and John, you probably are aware, I know Brennan is, Dave Stevens in his Rocketeer comics would always allude to Lamont Cranston and Doc Savage.
Well, Doc Savage built the rocket pack in the comics.
Doc Savage built the rocket pack. Let's not forget that.
Well,
and Ham and Monk come after him.
Yeah, and I mean, if you read any Philip Jose Farmer, he was obviously a huge fan of
I'm glad you brought him up because he tried to write a Doc Savage movie. That was in the... Where is this here?
He actually...
he wrote a treatment for a sequel to this. Under proposed sequels, they were actually at least ready to roll into another sequel. There was rumor they had filmed it, but apparently all they got to was shooting publicity stills for
They
sequel.
wrote a script, and it was supposed to be this movie, and it
Doc
was
Savage.
not based on a specific novel. They were doing their own.
Great title, by the way. Doc Savage, the arch enemy of evil. Great title.
Yeah, that's good.
And they're like, oh, we need to go back and set the character up. So this is the movie we got, which is based on the first novel, Man of Bronze, and some other, like the Mystic Mullah and that kind of the Green Death. But they kind of do this as the origin. So they already had, as you say, they had that script ready to go.
Yeah.
Had this been a hit, it was not. So
It was not, so that didn't happen, but apparently Philip Jose Farmer, who we've mentioned, of course, a guy who carried forward so much pulp for so long.
he was the world's greatest fan fiction novel.
He pitched a sequel to this before it came out. When he just said, "God, if you're making a Doc Savage movie," he wrote a treatment for, and this is, of course, this is what he wrote. Did you see this, Brendan? What he pitched? That would have been a team up with him and a retired old man Sherlock Holmes.
Well, to his credit, supposedly it is not. That's not the plot. There was a scene where
included a meeting. Okay, there you go.
In other words, he would meet with one of his mentors, and it'd be a retired Sherlock Holmes. But that was not the plot.
So that would have been part of it.
He could not help himself.
Right. But so that would have, So, but he wrote that without having seen this, and according to him, he claims that Powell told him, "Oh, Warner Brothers butchered what we wanted to do. That it was going to be a much bigger, spectacle movie, and they really destroyed it."
I think budgetary, probably.
Yeah,
but I think that tonally, I still
marketing, because they didn't. The distribution wasn't there. I mean, I joke that it never made to Macomb because it didn't. But Macomb was a small town; it wouldn't have made it to Macomb. But I don't think it made it to any market, in the South. Really, I don't think it played in Memphis or New Orleans or Jackson or I don't think they distributed it very well. I think it got to New York and Chicago and Los Angeles, and that was about it.
Powell did also try to turn it into a pitch for a TV show. He really was committed to this happening. He really was like, I got to make this. So he did go, okay, they didn't like it as a movie. What if it's a show now? And I think it seemed like at the time everybody was like,
which is weirdly where it stands today. Because apparently Shane Black's version, they finally gave up. Like, well, we're probably never gonna get the movie.
Shane Black tried to make this
cable series.
Do it. I would love that. I would love a Doc Savage show.
It'd be a great Doc Savage.
Well, he's busy though.
That dude,
Alan Ritson,
who plays Reacher.
Alan Ritson.
He should take a summer break and shoot a Doc Savage movie.
I think he has
so perfect for it.
He kicked a car.
Him kicking that car fucking rules.
And the thing I really enjoyed about Reacher, and still do, and I told John this because John reads the books.
Massive fan of the novels.
I never have either.
Huge fan of the books.
I like the fact that he is gigantic Sherlock Holmes.
He is.
Whenever they show him thinking or deducing or stuff like that, that's my favorite parts of the show, because I'm like going,
well, yeah.
It's not fair to be Bruce Wayne, where you're also the world's most cut dude, but with this brilliant mind.
I'm glad you said that, though, because I think that is key to the problem with, and it would have been the key to the problems with Chuck Connors, too. I get the physical thing, but neither one of these guys are able to play that intellectual, smart.
I did like the thing right at the beginning where he finds the bullet in the hole, and he goes,
"Sure,
that's a 700 grain, blah, blah, blah." And he goes, "So you know what that means? Elephant gun." Yeah, I mean that worked okay.
It worked okay, but what I'm saying, I don't believe this is the smartest man alive.
Did you catch that? The
trilling.
But I'm like, that's not what it would have sounded like. But
it wouldn't have sounded like that.
No,
that's the little things this for fans where it's like, I can't believe they included that.
Yeah,
I'm like, they included the trilling.
But I will say,
they include the Fortress of Solitude. They include these little things,
which of course, as with everything, has a metal label that says Fortress of Solitude.
And also the way it's described in the books, and then you see it in this thing, and it's a big igloo. And I'm like, no, in the books it's like a complex.
But the thing I was going to say, the trilling was a distinct example of me going, what the hell is? They made the sound. I went, what the hell? I went, oh God, that's the trilling, isn't it?
Yeah, and then they literally have
Sounds like computer
Monk goes,
processing.
oh, we know what that noise means.
But
You're thinking about
Yeah.
something.
It sounds like a computer going. Boop, 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 boop.
Brennan,
You have these good
Brennan,
actors.
do you remember the Saint radio show that Vincent Price did, and his friend, the cab driver, Louis?
Yeah, I do remember.
Gee, Mr. Templar.
Because you got to have one.
Yeah.
You got to have
figure that out, Mr. Templar.
You got to have a
you're the one
Doiby
they call the
Dickles.
Saint.
You got to have Doiby Dickles, don't you? Anyway,
Yeah, Doiby
and
Dickles, exactly.
But no, but I do think that is. Yeah.
Pin out John, then I'm going to smack you in the face. No, you have these good actors, but these people are given nonsense, lame jokes to do, and they don't sell it, and you just feel bad. They make the Fabulous Five almost always look like bumbling doofs.
Well, because
the whole thing with Paul Gleason, he's like, I'm the electrical wizard, and he's like going, I think I can get this elevator to work. You're like, that's not how the character would do it. The character would just go over and like fixed. Well, it's not, and it's like, oh, I can do this. I don't think you'll need a lawyer. Well, I guess where's my sword cane? I was like, I hate
when you talk about that, because they're almost always presented all together as a comedy act, right? Like the way they travel through the movie is it's nonstop bits with them, which I think adds to the idea of they don't feel very fabulous to me, you know?
They don't.
Yeah, but then of course they've got to have like the comedy character arc of the two guys who argue are actually friends. You know?
You go, anything for you, pal. And then they kiss. I thought that was such an odd beat.
Who knew?
Oh, I actually really liked that part. That was the best part of the movie.
Savage got woke. Got so woke. I would like to return this Man of Bronze. The ratings on the back did not include the woke percentage. This is too highly woke for me.
It gets a little woke.
I like a sleepier Man of Bronze who has not awoken yet.
Speaking of sleepier Man of Bronze, you guys, have you read the Chinatown Death Cloud Peril?
Have I? And the sequel.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, I have.
That's all I was thinking about watching this. And I was like, Stace, you got to read that book because Lester Dent and his wife come off like Nick and Nora Charles in that book. It's great.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So good.
That whole concept of making William Gibson and Lester Dent an actual crime solving duo.
Yeah.
So great.
Oh, this is the best.
And then the annoying L. Ron Hubbard tag along.
L. Ron Hubbard's the annoying
Hey guys, where you going?
Yeah, that's my favorite part by far. I love that.
He was the Jimmy Olsen nobody liked.
Oh gosh.
Hey Flash, could you just stay behind because that was his nickname? Because he wrote so fast.
They call him Flash was a joke.
I always loved that was his nickname. I love all that. I just love the idea of this guy writes fast. End of story. Good?
End of
no,
story.
fast.
Say good.
Fast.
Right.
Fast, yeah. You know what?
Brendan, there's a William Gibson. I should bring this up during the shadow, but there's a William Gibson thing that Max Allan Collins wrote called "The War of the Worlds Murder Case."
Yeah. Well, talk about another guy who keeps pulp going.
Orson Welles teaming up with William Gibson to solve a murder that has occurred during the broadcast of the War of the Worlds.
That's awesome.
I was going to say
drama icing on top of the drama cake.
Max Allan Collins, also a guy who very much
Max Allan Collins
keeps this shit alive too. I mean, my God, loves it.
He pumps a lot of blood.
Well, it's interesting. I don't think there's. That's why talking about Doc Savage though, just in general, and as we talk about, Shane Black has tried to. When I was a kid, it was for years though. We were hearing about Schwarzenegger. I mean, always like for.
And then the Rock for a while was going to be.
The Rock was. I mean, and I think The Rock still has some level of attachment to. I don't know if he owns a piece of the rights or something, but he's still like his name is at least still like in everything about it. And I would have loved to have seen that. You know, I mean, that would have been fun.
Yeah.
Because I think he could have brought the charm that Ely is missing. You know what I mean? Like, that's the thing I want to see. And I even think Schwarzenegger would have been better at that.
He wouldn't have needed an animated glint when he raises the eyebrow. You know?
That's it, exactly.
Schwarzenegger, I mean, again, I love Schwarzenegger, but every time the comic book movies were being purportedly made in the 80s, his name kept coming up.
Well, Sergeant Rock, he came very close to doing.
For it. It was just
Sergeant Rock,
he came real close to Sergeant
big.
Rock. Yeah.
It's just that he was big.
Yeah.
And I'm like, he's wrong for Sergeant Rock. He's wrong for Doc Manhattan. He's wrong for Doc Savage. He's right for a lot of things. And Conan, we're gonna get Conan.
Oh, we'll get to Conan. I mean, that's the other thing too. Is like he doesn't have to prove any of that. He did Conan.
When you and I and Monk and the rest met each other during World War II in the
World
prisoner
War
of war camp.
Well, who knows in this version?
Prisoner of war camp. And we fought those dirty German Hessians.
Yeah. It's like, oh man. I mean, Sergeant Rock. The whole idea of it.
Did you hear the?
Come on, you unhappy Joes of Easy Company.
Yeah, but did you hear the pit? Have you?
Easy Company.
I did hear a whole thing about what they had rewritten it so that he was a German who disagreed with the Nazis and became an American. It's like they still. What I like is that they did go. We're gonna try. We're gonna try to. And once again, this is something I think why Doc Savage now it would be a great time to do it, because this is something I've talked about across anything, because I'm always talking about action movies. We now do live in an era where you can be a big muscly guy, but you kind of do also have to be a good actor. We're not really willing to, and I do think Schwarzenegger
also
is better than people give him credit for.
No, he is, but you have to fit the character regardless.
Yeah.
It's like, I'm sorry, if you aren't a good fit, it doesn't matter how big a star you are.
But what I'm saying is, it's no longer the thing of looking at this movie is very much when you go like, well, who would have done it other than Ron Ely, right? Is we didn't have a lot of guys who were built and could act. Now we do, and I think that's the thing. It's nice. There are people you could actually, like an Alan Rich, and you could actually go, oh, he could be Doc Savage. The Rock, he could be Doc Savage. Although I will say, looking through and I'll read some user reviews as I always do at the end of this. There is a guy whose entire review of this movie is just railing against the idea of The Rock playing Doc Savage because he's not Caucasian, and I'm like, that's a great look. That's a great look, man.
That's a great take.
Yeah, fantastic.
Boy, wow. What an evolved human being he is.
I would have been totally fine with The Rock as Doc Savage because, again, charm, acting, all of that.
He could have absolutely pulled off the personality. That's key.
Well,
he has the look.
One of the things that throws me about this is, okay, I love Doc Savage, but he is tricky because Doc Savage is, in the books, he doesn't really smile. And in this movie, not only is he smiling, he's singing. That scene where they're in the cars and he's like, and they're singing like Cucaracha as they drive, and I'm like going, Doc is singing?
Yeah.
He actually is emotionally pretty still, which makes any actor playing him kind of like, geez, how am I going to humanize him? It is the reason you have the Fabulous Five around them, because they all have personality types to fill in the void that is Doc. He is so controlled and contained emotionally that he doesn't really express a lot emotionally.
Once again, you've got to go to Peter Weller as Buckaroo Banzai for how to do that, though, right? How to bring a charm.
Is a masterclass in that.
He's charming without being gregarious, right? Like,
yes, that's it.
Yeah, and that's why I think somebody like The Rock or Ritson,
but at the same time can sell us something like, there's the black Lectroid right there.
God.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
And it is hard. I
can't get enough.
It's
Brendan.
What is this? It's your hand, Buckaroo.
Yeah.
That's the formula. What is this?
It's the thing. It's very similar, and I think we brought this up earlier, but it's very similar to Superman. When people say Superman is boring, Superman is dull, he can. I agree. He can be. He can be because he is tricky. He is tricky because same thing with Doc Savage. These are so such perfect people.
Did you guys see that James Gunn yesterday, I think, posted on Instagram a series of images.
Oh, that is like his mood board, or
kind of inspiring. The mood board for the movie. and I almost started crying.
Yeah,
it was just so
that's
tonally perfect.
everybody's reaction is like,
guy, if you can pull this off,
it'll be just
I
fine.
will throw parades for you because there is no goddamn good reason why.
It's just like I was saying about, yesterday to John. There's some things where you do this right.
Yeah.
I will go home, close the door, and turn on the oven.
Yeah.
Because I've lived long enough.
Brendan,
I saw it.
Brendan, please, don't let that. Don't do that. Okay.
Because they might make another Superman movie.
Because I've got like a frozen pizza.
What did you think I was implying?
You want to eat a frozen pizza in honor of
Yeah.
This,
okay, all right.
Yeah, it's not a gas oven; it's electric oven. You can turn the oven on right now.
Brendan, your nephew deserves an uncle.
You took that in a weird way. That's just me saying I will celebrate with a frozen pizza.
But no, that's why it is a bummer that the Shane Black versions never got off the ground, because that's a guy who would get it, right? That is a guy who Pulp is so steeped in his. Yeah. I'm so glad he's doing Parker.
It would be interesting to see if he would, in his case, and again, we haven't read his script. I'm dying to read it simply because would he have Shane Blackified Doc Savage? In other words, would he have Grittified him? Because Shane Black doesn't really write altruistic hero characters, and maybe he'll try.
I mean, Iron Man 3 is probably as close as he's gotten, right?
They have Doc Savage's code in this movie, and it should land. Because yay, our hero, but because this is a cartoon, it's played for laughs, and that made me sad because Lone Ranger, Doc Savage, these guys had these. Because you joined the fan club, there is an actual code,
right? And speaking of which, this is what I was thinking. We were talking about the possible TV shows, that if they nailed the tone of a Doc Savage TV show, then they could do a Shadow TV show, an Avenger TV show, and make it all interconnected. Where it's all, and it's literally a cinematic universe.
Get out of my head. Get out of my head.
But Brendan, you see what I'm saying? It's a cinematic universe that is begging to happen.
Well,
the 1930s verse.
The thing about it, we've talked about this before, Brendan, because
Benson, the Avenger.
Well, it's we've talked about this before, Brendan, because
did you read the I think it was Dynamite when they did Shadow
Masks,
helping to create the Avenger.
Yeah.
Well, they did Masks. They did Justice Incorporated. Was that what it was?
Yeah.
Also, King's Quest. They also did over at Dynamite too. I loved all that stuff.
With the King's Features character.
Love that. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I love all those team ups of.
Except for it was like Prince Valiant. It was like, well, that's a stretch. Can't you leave him out?
No, because he's part of the King's Features. Oh, Brendan.
But it's like centuries before. The other three guys actually exist in the same time period.
Brendan, you've got to break up all the action by having two or three pages of just panel after panel of text.
Yeah.
And beautiful illustrations.
I just keep the guys who share a time period together.
No, the thing I was going to say about this, though, the TV shows, I think, are the way to do this, because, Brendan, you and I have talked about this, that every once in a while they try to make one of these big budget movies out of the pulp characters. Nerds like us go, but they just can't get people interested. But I think, like a streaming network, you can go more to a niche audience. That's where we're seeing a lot of in the parlance of this show, the IP squad. A lot of the more cult IP is really working there, because that is more about getting a dedicated audience than a mass audience per se. And so I do think the idea of a shadow, and then if you could bring them, I mean, do what Netflix did, right, where they brought them all together as the Defenders. Do a season of each, and then bring everybody together as Mask or Justice Incorporated, or
All I'm saying is, they need to read my script for the Shadow.
I have read your script for the Shadow. They should read that.
Part 1.
Yes, I've read the first episode of Brendan's Shadow.
Hey, Brendan, does Lamont Cranston compliment Shiwan Khan on his suit as being Brooks Brothers? Because that's a good touch.
They
have stuff like that in it. Yep. That's fun.
Okay.
Maybe we should save this for that.
We should, because somebody's sharpening their knives over here for that conversation.
All I'm saying is,
I love that movie.
Doc Savage is one of the pulp tentpoles. He
Yes.
is.
Oh God, yeah.
He, of course, the Shadow is number one because he lasted longer. He came first.
He's the
He's
pulpiest
more
of pulps.
Successful.
Yeah.
But Doc Savage is right there, neck and neck.
It's
very
interesting
important.
They're the Superman and
has
Batman.
Translated somewhat to other media.
Yeah.
Because he was originally created for radio.
Right.
But Doc Savage has never really translated that, or no one's really attempted
here and there. Not much though. Yeah, it's never been as successful when they have. Yeah, no, that's it. That's I think they are the Batman and Superman of the pulps, right? I mean, they for sure are that.
But
they're the prototypes.
And for a long time, Superman actually had it over Batman because Superman was the one you saw more often.
Isn't that is crazy? I think for people to hear that now because Batman so dominates not just Superman but like all superheroes.
Superman movie since 1970,
Superman is the first.
Whatever.
Superman is the best.
Well, Superman is the first. I'll leave it at that.
The speaking of which,
he's the first.
One more thing.
Yeah.
One more thing.
Yeah.
The way Amazon Prime has taken airport books for guys and turned them into these really well done shows.
All my favorites.
Is the model that a smart streaming service should do for these pulp heroes.
Well,
Agreed.
I think Netflix has always been looking for their universe, right? Like they keep trying. They have a lot of successful stuff, but Netflix has really been on the hunt for what's going to be our thing. And they tried the Millar stuff, the Millar world.
Yeah.
That's just not...
All I'm saying is, if I don't get
land.
a cinematic, and by cinematic, I mean streaming.
Yeah, quality, right?
If I don't get a streaming universe out of Is It Cake? I don't. What's the point?
But
what's the point?
But they tried to do it with The Witcher.
Crossover with Great British Baking Show.
It's been kind of... It's been kind of... Yeah. It's been kind of sad to see, actually, at Netflix, right? Like, when they really tried to make the Witcher universe happen, and it's like, guys, you can't even keep a single Witcher show together, apparently. I don't know how you think you're going to do more of these.
They spent the money.
We're now in a reality where, streaming has reached its limit in terms of the subscriber model, so they're actually pulling back on
they're paring it down
for new original content.
And I'm hearing that
content based on IP.
A lot of the Marvel shows are being canceled before they're being made. I hear that Ironheart's not going to happen, or War Machine, and I'm like, oh no.
Ironheart, they finished filming Ironheart.
Armor Wars.
Armor Wars is going to be a movie. It's not going to be a show.
Yeah.
I mean, there is a very unfortunately realistic financial thing too. They've now learned there's not limitless money out there, which also makes sense because
we're not locked down, we're not in a pandemic, and so the drive to subscribe and have content
it was always short-sighted as well, I think, because it's like at a certain point everybody who wants it has it, right? Like unless new people are appearing out of nowhere, you're only going to get it's an interesting thing. Welcome to sad business talk on the IP Squad.
People are appearing out of nowhere. It's called the miracle of birth.
And they're immediately signing up for Disney Plus.
Yes, as soon as they're out of the womb, they're signing up for Disney Plus. All right,
but
back to Doc Savage.
Relate to IP in that we are looking at content that is being adapted from original content. And what I was saying, I think, is that the money is just not there the way it used to be. Apple has hit a wall with its, foundation adaptations to a degree.
Yeah.
It's just the money's not quite there anymore.
Okay. Well, back to Doc Savage. You're absolutely right.
Back to okay. Yeah. And then I'll get to some reactions. Yeah.
His father gets assassinated. He goes to South America.
I don't think we've ever actually talked about the plot of the movie because it doesn't really matter.
His father's last steps. Finds out, oh my God, has he been murdered by this villainous guy named Captain Seas? And again, that's a direct lift from
that is SEAS because he sailed all the seas, folks.
Oh, and the
which I know is from the books, but does he have to say it?
the back and forth with Monk about the name,
Who's on
and it's
first?
supposed to be
Who's on
funny, and
first? Who's on first?
it's terrible. It's
Third
all
base.
terrible. Yeah, third
I
base.
did think it was a little on the nose when Monk actually said, "I've been a bad boy."
He essentially kind of does that.
He does. He comes damn close.
I do anything for my buddy, pal. Anyway,
Yeah. It's damn
it's
close.
awful.
Yeah.
But so and when he goes to South America, he meets C's, but also there's local shady politician
God.
guy who sleeps
Okay.
in a oversized rocking cradle.
This is a fundamental. This is one of those things where it's like, if you don't understand what camp is, don't do it, because I don't know what laugh-in sketch they pulled this out of, but Jesus Christ!
I literally got the cradle out of the. This was a Lily Tomlin prop that they.
There you
Feel
go.
like that. Jesus.
Stacy, my wife kept just going, "Why? So why is that?" And I was like, "She goes, is that from the books?" I go, "No."
Oh
that's
no,
not.
no,
That
no.
is not. And it needless to say, the second they arrive in South America, every character is introduced to La Cucaracha, and at various points, the characters, even the South American characters, are singing La Cucaracha to themselves.
Brandon, it is a haunting motif.
All of the music through this is John Phillip Souza marches
Or La Cucaracha.
or La Cucaracha. And okay, so this is all terrible and horrible.
This is all to say this movie is also super racist.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This is all a hate crime. And then you get Captain C's has two sassy female
Lady.
sidekicks, one of whom is the lady from Blazing Saddles.
Robin Hilton. Yeah.
Yeah, I was like, oh, so you had
Doing a Marilyn Monroe impression.
Yeah.
to the best of her ability.
Yeah.
And also the lovely Pamela Hensley Buck Rogers in the 25th century. 25th century.
Ooh, I spent a lot of time watching that as a kid.
And she is a and again, this is just the period. She is a non-Hispanic or Latinx person.
Yeah.
And she is in makeup. And I will say that she is not cartoonizing her accent. She's trying to be fairly, so she's inoffensive, but at the same time, yes, she is playing another
By the way,
ethnicity.
I'd be remiss if, being a huge fan of this movie, I did not mention that the same year she's also in Rollerball, which is a movie I love.
Sure.
I love Rollerball. But
I mean, she had
married to E. Duke Vincent, who was one of the Charlie's Angels runners.
Yeah.
And
still
that,
are
that
married
may be
apparently
why
too.
Her career just she literally was like, I don't have to work anymore. So it disappears after like 85 or something.
You know what's?
Sure.
I just looked.
Matt
I said,
Houston, last thing she was on.
E.
well,
Duke Vincent,
once-
runner on Matt Houston.
once you share the screen with one Lee Horsley, must you? Is anything else? I think you've completed your work as an actor.
She said, I have been to the top of the mountain. And that mountain is named Horse.
By the way, R.I.P. E. Duke Vincent. I looked. They go. It says there's still 1982 to present. Then I click on his thing, and he just died like a couple weeks ago.
Oh, I'm so R.I.P. and very sorry, Miss Hensley.
Condolences to Pamela Hensley.
Yeah.
But also, Brennan will be sending you his number. Because
I did have a crush, but if it came to Buck Rogers, it was Aaron Gray all the
well,
way.
sure.
So I know.
Hensley, no.
Well, Hensley's walking around in the bikinis, and that's like okay, but
Metal
Aaron Gray,
bikini.
All I'm saying is Wilma Deering.
Aaron Gray still married to a living man. Brendan, sorry to.
Damn it.
Yeah.
So he didn't receive the tainted chocolate.
Yeah, curses. I'm still trying to land Aaron Gray.
I like saying the tainted chocolate.
The tainted chocolate. These chocolates smell tainted.
80s new wave hit.
The tainted chocolate.
Tainted chocolate. Oh.
But no, I not since Victoria Principal played a Hispanic native girl in Life and Times of Judge Roy Bean.
Oh,
no.
Except for that was I like that movie.
Victoria Principal is Latin X.
Is she?
Oh, really?
Yeah, she is of Latin parentage. Yes.
I never knew
Okay,
that.
well, pardon
Yeah,
moi.
Principal may have been like a stage name that she took, or maybe her father, but she is actually of that background.
Okay, but
Oh.
man, she bumps up the accent.
Brendan, I'm gonna have to correct you live here.
What?
No, sir.
Really?
No, sir. She is of Japanese descent, which is interesting.
What?
Yeah, Japanese. Well, Japanese born. Okay, all right.
Yeah.
Japanese born, American actress, Pamela. Let's see here. Born in Fukuna.
Oh no! I'm not talking about Pamela Hensley. I'm talking about Victoria Principal.
No, I'm looking at Victoria Principal. Sorry, that was because she played Pamela Ewing, of course, on Dallas.
Oh, I see. I
As
see.
we all know.
She was born in Japan to American parents, but grew up all around the world, according to this.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I am very sorry then.
I don't
know
see
where I got
anything
that
about.
idea.
I don't see anything about her being that. No.
Okay, so she also did,
Yeah.
some
And
brown
regardless
face.
of the as you bring up, regardless of the nationality. Anyway, it's certainly still a total caricature of a performance in that movie. The other thing,
She's the submissive.
it's not great. Although I
It's
like
not
that,
great,
but I like that movie though.
girlfriend.
Life and Times of Judge Roy
I got it on
Bean.
Blu-ray. I think it's terrific.
Judge Roy Bean
It's great,
and,
yeah.
and Buffalo Bill and the Indians are both like
Oh,
these-
Buffalo Bill and the Indians is so
Oh,
good.
Jesus.
These are outliers where I'm like going, there's some problematic stuff in both, but man, do I like these movies.
both,
All right,
yeah.
I do.
moving on.
I love them both. But yeah, absolutely right.
I will say,
however, Pamela Hensley, following in the time-honored tradition of
Yes.
Victoria Principal.
But I
Yes.
will say also,
And she is the secretary to the guy who sleeps in the cradle.
yes, and she's when Doc Savage first meets her, she's typing. And what does she reach over to? Literally a plate of what looks like just like kitchen-made tacos that I would like make with
Yep.
store-bought shells.
yeah,
You know, you're just
Yep.
going like, and I did roll my eyes at that, going, God! Not only is she making, they literally have her going,
And
I'm having my
suddenly-
lunch of tacos.
And suddenly
Yeah.
from behind her, they go, da 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 da,
Yeah.
and she gets up and goes,
Yeah.
da 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 da.
No,
You're like, wow, she does the hat band.
We dance, we dance, we dance.
Here, and they thought it was too on the nose.
It's just still shocking.
Oh.
I will say
Or
it's
they do the Michael Nesmith 1 ton
1 ton
tomato.
tomato.
I ate a 1 ton tomato.
you realize when you watch stuff like this, and of course, as all of us are fans of classic cinema and novels
Sure.
and stuff like that, it comes with the territory. But it does. Let's say it doesn't still. It still always stings a little when you're like,
Well,
ooh,
in this case, again,
ooh.
this is intentionally. They're trying to be comedic, and this
Which
they
makes
think
it
is
way
hilarious.
worse. Make it
Yeah,
way
it's like
worse.
this doesn't. None of this lands.
Yeah.
Well, that's why I said
No.
nothing in this movie lands.
No.
Not
Yeah.
a single choice
No.
lands,
Yeah.
and that's rare, especially when this is not a movie made by amateurs, and
No.
this is a
Right.
studio film, and nothing works in it.
But it also,
Nothing.
as you bring that up, it is interesting that. But it also does not that anyone is.
I did like the extinguisher globes.
In
That's fine.
theory,
That's very Doc.
it is,
That's very
but it's
Doc.
but like this whole movie,
And
it's
my
kind of
wife was like, so snowballs, and I go, yeah, but it's science.
Yeah.
Snowballs,
It's
honey.
giant snowballs, and also they have the poorly animated, but at least animated the ghost green snakes. that killed people.
Yeah.
and
That's
Sweet.
very pulp.
it's very pulp. But once again, both of those things are like, I understand these are things, but boy, the
doesn't
execution
work.
of them.
Yeah.
No, yeah, that's just
And-
that's just it
and-
exactly.
Yeah, my wife was like, they couldn't have animated these better, or any. And I go, it's the same animation they used for the Martian lasers in War of the Worlds.
It's-
That's
Yeah.
basically the same.
Yeah.
Just like 20 years before this, and they're still
Well,
going.
George Powell knew.
Yeah. Hey, no, trust me. That. Hey, I've done it before. It worked before. It'll work again.
Right.
Trust me, folks.
Oh, God. Yeah.
It's interesting you mentioned the Martian lasers because Brendan, I know you. Actually, it was when I was on your other podcast that I brought up. Michael Anderson also directed the Martian Chronicles miniseries.
Right.
Yeah. after this.
Which for a TV miniseries,
not bad.
It tried.
It's not bad.
It's all right.
It certainly is a lot more, what was I saying? A lot more sincere undertaking than this. Let's say,
Sure. Yes.
Yeah, and McGavin was a great choice for the guy who wants to open the McDonald's or whatever it is.
Hey, Robin. Full stop. All you have to say is McGavin was the right choice.
Hey, man.
Darren McGavin is the right choice.
Did I point people over to our Patreon page yet again to listen to Nights Talking, our Night Stalker? Because
there you go.
You can listen to like 20 episodes of Brendan and I talking up Darren McGavin.
And my pitched idea for the spinoff, Raven about McGavin. Blew me off. We would have gotten into
actually,
they're like that's an implied rhyme and it doesn't work. So we're not gonna greenlight that podcast.
Robin, I do actually, and Brendan's not shut because I'm always saying
do gabbing about McGavin.
Ooh, that's pretty good. But I do own the box set of his My Camera Show, of course.
Of course you do.
Terrific. And The Outsider before Rockford Files.
Wonderful.
We're not going to have this.
Anyway, let's talk about. We've talked about some stuff. I want to talk about, as I always do on the show, our segment Highs and Lows, which is where I pick a 1-star and a 10-star.
Captain C's. The end.
Okay, so we'll start with a 1-star.
He beats him up and takes him back to his crime college and lobotomizes him, and it does the thing.
The fact they include the crime college.
I know. I had to explain that to my wife.
I was telling you about this, Brendan, and Robin, I don't know if you've read the Dynamite Doc Savage comic that Chris Roberson did. Shout out to... shout out to Chris Roberson, who lives here in Oregon.
Deal with the ramifications of the crime college?
That's exactly what I was going to say, because that's one of the things I love about it is like, because it jumps decades each issue, and I love the idea that at a certain point it's like, hey, is this fucking ethical, man? Like, I know you think this is a good thing, but
what I like about that concept is that every postmodern Doc Savage writer, whether it's comics or Will Murray, who has continued the Doc Savage novels, including the first two official Shadow crossovers, which were pretty well done. I mean, it's not what I would have done, but so I'm like, all right.
But I'm going to get you a shirt, Brendan, that says it's not what I would have done, because that would be the...
I can't turn off the story.
No, I know, but it's just I've been to so many movies with him,
So the thing is that every single
instead of going Brendan's celebratory cake that he makes after James Gunn's Superman, which
not what I would have done.
It's not what I would have done.
Yeah.
Okay. Would I have gone with the cool Alex Ross modernizer?
Yes.
We'll see.
Yes.
Anyway, here's the thing. Every single postmodern writer who touches Doc Savage, that is always the thing.
Well, you have to.
That lie. They always bring up Crime College, and then it's all about the it's like, ooh, we need to deal with the ramifications of what is essentially...
Because it's monsters.
It is elective, but it's still surgery.
Kind of elective. I mean, they're already basically in. He's not calling it a jail, but it's kind of a prison. And it's basically like, if you want to get out of here, you're gonna do this. And it is objectively monstrous what he's doing. And I love in the comic where he just goes like, "No, I'm actually." Curing them, like it's if anything, I'm giving them more free will because they're no longer ruled by their impulses, and everybody's like, I don't know about that, Doc. So I highly recommend that comic. I highly recommend that comic if you want to see a well done example of somebody modernizing while staying true to the spirit and the vibes of what it should be.
I don't mind the idea that even Doc Savage failed, because the idea that Doc Savage is a great experiment, but he is not like you or I. And I do like stories where even his Fabulous Five are like, Doc, you're amazing, but we're not all subjects, and you're also not your father.
No,
you weren't raised the right way, by the way.
I think that comic in particular does that.
I think that's an avenue that would really help this series that we have not seen yet. That
it is a way you can humanize Doc Savage. Yes.
Yeah.
Doc was the product of an intense experiment.
Yeah.
Oh,
And so therefore, Doc believes this is the way.
Right. And Doc is the
Yeah.
reason he seems so contained and controlled is like a Vulcan. He has never really dealt with his emotions because he didn't have an emotional upbringing, and that's stuff that's story grist. You can
there's no doubt in my mind that a streaming
or episode of Star Trek, for Christ's sake.
But I was gonna say, there's no doubt in my mind that a streaming or cable take on it. How could you not have lots of like shifting
I'm sorry,
time?
Monk Ham, it's time for my Ponfar. It's been 7 years.
But what I'm saying is, there's no way you couldn't.
The late Jose Farmer would probably have a story or two about that too.
I'm gonna go hang out with Tarzan. Don't open the door.
I'm saying there's no way you couldn't deal with the idea that, like, yeah, there'd be inherent like emotional damage from his upbringing, and there's no way you wouldn't include flashbacks to his childhood and stuff in a show. That's so rich, dramatic material.
On a Michael Powell's Peeping Tom level of these weirdo home movies.
I wouldn't go there.
But I mean, actually, like Reacher does
about that?
here and there.
It's just been. Is it
Criterion?
No, it's Criterion. Yeah, Criterion's doing it.
I love Peeping Tom.
May.
Yeah.
Alan Pressburger. I just you can't go wrong.
No, you really can't. You really can't. Yeah, they were very good. They were,
and they're bouncing around. It's not like they're all the same thing. You're like, what?
Yeah.
These are the guys who did the Red Shoes.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. So I do want to get to these.
Life and death.
I do want to get to these reactions. I do want to get to the reactions here. So, like I said, I'll start with the 1 star because we are kind of all very cool on this picture. So I'll start with this comes to us from IMDb user Andre71, who titles his review "Boring Plot Joined with Bad Acting and Bad Effects." After having seen the movie, the first question arising in my mind, I completely agree with this. Yeah. After seeing the movie, the first question arising in my mind was, is this supposed to be irony or not? After reading a few comments about the character Doc Savage in the comic series, I knew this film was not meant to be ironic, so the story tells us about the U.S.-American Super Doc saving a South American Republic from evil. It sounds like a typical story, but this one comes in such an unrealistic way that it becomes ridiculous. The mandatory end fight shows the worst presentation of martial arts I have ever seen. This film might be interesting for low-budget movie designers as a bad example. 1 out of 10 stars. I do think it's really interesting to hear a person who goes, I don't know any of the source material. This movie's just bad. Like, and then I looked it up and go, doesn't seem like this is the take that's in the source material. So,
and I don't think he's seen Buckaroo Banzai either.
You can't reply to these.
My wife wasn't familiar with the books at all, but she could pick up on, this is what Buckaroo Banzai is like.
Yeah.
The
better version, obviously.
Yeah.
The thing that's interesting about that is I do want to reply to this guy and go, as if you could reply to these reviews, just go read the books or here's a link to the Adventures of Buckaroo Banzai across the dimension. Which is I think just the final thing we have to say on the show. The final thing is don't watch this, watch Buckaroo Banzai instead, because it is
right. And then explain what the deal with the watermelon was.
Okay.
Have an explanation.
Here we go.
I'll explain.
Well, let's talk to a totally insane person here.
Just completely. I'm sorry, that was totally sidetracky.
Yeah.
But that New Jersey just going like again with the fingers and that. Later.
Yeah, I'll explain it later. Jeff Goldblum, perfectly cast.
Yes.
Yeah.
Perfectly cast.
As he is in pretty much everything. That guy.
Of course.
All right. So this is Eric Garcia Bat is the name of this user. Title of the review is one of the first superhero movies released in theaters. I think before the first Superman movie, this was one of the first superhero movies to be released in theaters. Also, keep in mind that, well, yeah, I mean, I can see why you would make that mistake.
Sure.
Also, keep in mind that at that time, it was not yet known to make a superhero movie to reach the cinemas. Doc Savage may not be a perfect movie, but in my opinion, it is just a guilty taste to hang out, and also a movie from our childhood. Ron Ely was great, and by the way, Ron Ely was great and extraordinary with the character of Doc Savage.
He was both.
He was both great and extraordinary. Yeah.
This may be the finest acting I've ever seen you do. And I've listened to every one of the Tesla City podcasts.
Well, I really had to tap.
Amazing.
I really had to tap into the mind of a madman here to do. Was extraordinary, and his cast was perfect. Now more than ever, with the current cinema and with the new technology, now could be a reboot or remake of the character. Even according to Stan Lee, Doc Savage was also a great inspiration for superheroes. It's a shame that this film has not had a sequel because it left much to be desired. It would have been very interesting. It would have been something similar to James Bond movies or current superhero movies. For years, he's even talked about a new Doc Savage movie, Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson. So far, the realization of the project still remains uncertain. Okay.
My question to this reviewer would be, have you seen The Adventures of Buckaroo Banzai? Because that seems to be the movie you're talking about.
Yeah, it is. I will say, just skimming through a lot of the, and this makes sense to me. A lot of the positive reviews are, "I was a kid. This was fun. Why are people?"
I was a kid when this came out.
I saw it as a kid, and I didn't like it then. Like I said, and I was a kid who, I mean, I loved the Richard Chamberlain, Alan Quartermain movies as a kid, and those aren't good.
Wait, John. John, those are not good.
No, I know they're not good, but that's what I'm saying. It's like I'm saying it's
John,
not.
I saw them when they came out.
You were older though.
John,
I mean,
I would rewatch them now for a fresh take, but actually Wednesday is garbage day. And they would take, literally,
no! I'm not defending them. I'm not defending them. I'm using this as an example of even as a kid, I wasn't like a massively discerning kid, is what I'm saying.
Yeah.
John,
and even I thought this was boring.
The Richard Chamberlain, Alan Quartermain movies could not reach the height of Jake's Speed. That's how bad they were.
No, but it was
the Further Adventures of Tennessee Buck.
Anytime.
Oh my God, yes.
I mean, look, I was such a rabid, and still I'm. Brendan, you've been in my apartment. You know how much Indiana Jones stuff is in here. That I was just rabid for anything with that tone. So yes, I liked High Road to China. I liked anything that gave me that flavor. So
I hear you.
I get it.
Yeah.
I was a huge fan of Tales of the Gold Monkey.
I
get it.
We've mentioned before the love of Tales of the Gold Monkey.
And the Clyde Buck show was all right.
Oh, Bring Him Back Alive?
Tales of the Gold Monkey, but it was
no, but Bring
good.
Him Back Alive was fun. I do like Boxleitner quite a bit. So
the Tron reteaming that we all were hoping.
Oh, by the way, R.I.P. to Cindy Morgan. Very sad.
I don't want to talk about that.
Yeah, very sad.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
That
I don't
woman.
want to talk about
She was wonderful.
I don't want to talk about that.
All right, let's talk about what we're talking about next week, though.
What are we talking about next week?
Well, you know,
wait, John.
Yeah.
First, can I do one final cap on Doc?
Oh yeah. Please do.
This movie is terrible. Do not watch it. We've already said that.
Yeah. Instead, watch Buckaroo Banzai.
The only thing this movie did to improve upon the original source material, because it's trying.
Yes.
But the only thing it really pegged.
Yeah.
And I felt this when I read the classic 30s novels.
Yes.
Sure.
His collar's not big enough. This movie finally gave us a Doc Savage with collars that go all the way.
Oh yeah.
All the way
all
to
the way.
ends of his shoulders.
Oh, good God, yeah.
My wife enjoyed the production design of the movie.
Yeah.
And the costume design. And I said, well, if you like this, you should see those Bama paintings.
Yeah.
Oh, God, yeah.
That's what they're taking all of this.
Oh.
But I will say it doesn't.
The Bama paintings came to life.
For how silly this movie is, I wish it had gone further in those categories, kind of like Danger Diabolique, which is similarly a bad script, I think, to this. But is way more fun to look at, infinitely more enjoyable to the eyes.
On the production design, yeah, absolutely.
That's the reason to watch that. At least I was
But
intrigued.
John, the only thing they took from that movie was Paul Frees.
Let's just see how often will he be in these movies is the question.
Okay,
Will he be in
tell
next
us.
week's movie?
Tell us what's
Well,
Fair
guys, I
enough.
think it's been a lot of fellas on the show. I think this has been kind of a sausage fest, honestly. With I think it's time to get a lady pulp comic strip hero in here,
Lady.
and it's time
Fine.
to meet Friday Foster next week. That's right. Can I say Friday Foster? That's right.
Yeah.
This is on the milder end of the Pam Grier scale, but at the same time, I'm looking forward.
But that scale is
I
better than
can't
most
wait.
other people's because
Cannot
she's Pam
wait.
Grier. And I will say,
the comic strip, beautifully illustrated.
yeah.
I've never read any Friday Foster.
But I'll just say, and I think I'm going to do this from now on. I'll give you the tagline for the movie because I love.
Oh, yeah.
I love
please.
this for next week's movie, and this is so indicative there and speaks to the level of fame she was. Wham, bam, here comes Pam.
Oh yeah.
God, that's
Dude.
good.
I just 70s Pam Grier.
Oh, my God.
She owns it.
Was there
and
anyone
everyone else
better?
is just renting it.
Talk about somebody
No, there really
who.
wasn't.
Talk about somebody who could take utter shit material, and she was in a lot of garbage.
Yeah.
But I
lot of
love
garbage.
her in everything.
Yeah.
I've
It
never
took-
seen her be
it
bad
took-
in any. You know what I mean?
It took almost her entire life for someone to say, you know what, you deserve to be in something.
Well, and when that happened, it's not
Yeah.
only her best performance, but it's Robert Forster's best performance too.
Yep.
I would agree. And
Love that
until
movie. Love that
the
movie.
last couple of movies, it was always my favorite Tarantino movie. I thought
It
was
is
one of
always the
best.
one that
Jackie Brown is near perfection.
Just
it's so good, and it was the one that disappointed. Like at the moment, people go, "This isn't Pulp Fiction," but I do feel like I hear more and more people go, "God, that's like kind of quietly the masterpiece, right?" Like in some way.
yeah, it just.
I
Oh my
think
God.
it's the one where what I was whining about with Tarantino, that is the movie that stands as that is what he can do if he decides to be tonally consistent and just give us a solid
Okay.
story
Brendan?
without animated title sequences and weird nonsense.
Yeah. Okay. All right.
It's also his
I'll
only
tell you this.
adaptation.
One of my favorite scenes in movies is the conversation between Pam Grier and Robert Forster, where they talk about things that bug them because they are older.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
And
Yep.
when Forster goes, well, I just didn't like my hair, so I did something about it, And she goes, I'm just so tired. I cannot tell you, as I get older,
Oh yeah.
And a
it
scene-
resonates.
for Tarantino,
He wrote
who
that
has
as a younger
locked in
dude
on
too.
that and paid that kind of attention to it
Yeah.
as a young man is beautiful. And I you guys know how I feel about Tarantino as a person, and it's hard to listen to him talk.
I'm right there with you on that too. Yeah.
But I just have to go, as an artist, he didn't have. There's no reason why he should have focused on that. at
No.
all.
Yeah.
No, it is
And
objectively a
only in
weird
the-
choice in his oeuvre there.
The only reason is to make a solid real film, and that's what he did.
It's true. And that closes up Tarantino. No, I'm sorry. This is IP Squad.
Yeah.
No, yeah. So we'll continue with Friday Foster, our examination into that. But and of course, if you want more from this podcast and all the shows on the Punch Up Entertainment Network, you're gonna want to head over to our Patreon page, which is patron.podbean.com/punchup. There you get, I said, cool exclusive bonus content from all the shows, as well as help support out the network. So be sure to check that out, and make sure you subscribe to us on YouTube as well for video podcasts and other fun stuff. But that is going to do it for this for the IP Squad this week. Until next week, this case file is closed.